Hello fellow lovers of the liminal and the weird, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. Today I'm going to talk about Roger Zelazny's third book, which is Lord of Light. This was published in 1967, and the first thing that I want to say about this book before we move on is that I made a video about this book with Ira from SF Words of Wonder, and we discussed very thoroughly the publication history of this book and our thoughts on the book. And the first thing I want to do is tell you that that is the video you should watch for the deep review of this book. It's not plot spoiling, it's plot spoiler free, but that is where I did most of the deep reading discussion for this book. Sorry, it's a little windy out here in the desert today, so hopefully that doesn't come across in the sound to the video. We'll see. Yeah, so hop on there. I'll put a link to that video in the description. If you haven't watched it already, you absolutely should. But I did also want to talk about this book a little bit on the channel in the context of the fact that I am reading Roger Zelazny's bibliography in kind of publication order, although I'm going to be moving around a little bit. So I just wanted to talk about it in that context for just a minute on the channel here, so that when people search for all my Zelazny material, I can put it in the playlist. So, of course, Roger Zelazny's first novel is hard to pin down. These are his two first novels, The Dream Master and This Immortal. And the interesting thing about these is The Dream Master was published in magazine form first, and This Immortal was published in magazine form second, but This Immortal was published in novel form first, and The Dream Master was published in novel form second. So I have a tendency to put Dream Master first, and Dream Master is the first Roger Zelazny that I ever read for this channel, and I really enjoyed it, and I loved it. It was very science fiction. It had a tendency to bring in some myth, but only symbolically as a way to discuss the science fiction events that were going on with the characters. This one blew me away, and is probably still my favorite Zelazny. This one, Roger Zelazny took a completely different approach. I would love to know which one of these two were written first. This Immortal is science fiction. It's about a future Earth that Earth has kind of destroyed itself. Humanity has kind of destroyed itself and is being bought up by this alien race that is trying to make it into this vacation destination with spas and stuff, but also a place where you can go look at the creatures that were stupid enough to destroy themselves, humanity. Its main character, and I've forgotten his name, Conrad. Its main character, Conrad, is either a mutated version of a Greek mythological creature or god, or he is a Greek mythological creature or god. And this is the first time we start to see Roger Zelazny trend towards rewriting myth in a science fiction way. And it is important to note with this novel that he kind of started to invent this concept, which I think became very popular. He was the first, if not one of the first people to come up with this concept of looking at something as through kind of a fantasy lens that was science fiction. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one, although I must say it, in my opinion, was a step down from this one. Dream Master blew my mind. And that brings us to today's book, which is The Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny. This seems like a re-attempt at this using a different mythology. And the mythology in this one is Hinduism and Buddhism. A lot of people have recommended this book to me. A lot of people love this book, and I can see why. I must admit to having a hard time finishing this. Not because of confusion, but because I am not a huge fan of adventure novels. I prefer mind-bending sci-fi over Star Wars style space adventure. That is not to denigrate Star Wars style space adventure. This is all about personal taste, and that just happens to be my personal taste. So I'm very much wishing that Roger Zelazny will go back into territory that he started with in Dream Master, and I'm starting to feel like that it's not going to happen. So yes, there were long descriptions of war in this book that for me were hard to get through, but for people that love that kind of writing, that fantastic fantasy type of writing, will absolutely love this. I also want to say, as I step further away from it, I like this more and more. The idea is really wild. One of the things that Ira and I talked about was the fact that this was kind of hard to imagine because Zelazny didn't really go into detail of what these machines looked like that allowed these fantastical magical beings to exist that were taking on this Hindu pantheon, and because of that, I felt like he lost something that he really could have gained if he described them more, because the more I stay away from this and imagine it, say as a film, the more I imagine it and the more I imagine it, the more I think that this would be an absolutely incredible film if you got the right artistic director. Same thing that kind of happened with Alien, right? The H.R. Geiger designs on Alien are one of the things that make that movie so incredible. And I feel like if we got a director that would create really fantastical designs for these machines to explain the magic, it would be really incredible. But I feel like Zelazny could have explained not how the tech works, but how the tech looks. That juxtaposition of this being a mythic Hindu world, but really it's spacefarers from Earth that are using science to create these miracles. I really wanted to see what the reincarnation machine would look like, and Roger Zelazny describes it as a temple, and not as the weirdness that it could have been, right? Yeah, David Lynch's Lord of Light, I would have been 100% in on. Yeah. If you want to know more about what I thought of the plot and what I thought of the characters and that kind of stuff, go watch the video that I was a guest on Ira's channel, SF Words of Wonder. It is linked down in the description, but that's just my thoughts on this in the context of reading the Roger Zelazny's bibliography. I also want to mention that the next novel, I don't know if it's the next one or the one after, I feel like is attempting this yet again, but from an Egyptian, a mythic Egyptian perspective. And I'm starting to feel like Zelazny is just going through pantheons and writing science fantasy books about those pantheons, which I'll be honest, I'm going to need a little bit of a break from. So I've decided to go back and read some of his early novellas, and catch up to 67 when this was released with some of the earlier novellas that he wrote. So I'm looking forward to hopefully a different concept from Zelazny for a little while. Not that this is a bad concept, just that it's a concept that I feel like I've read a couple of times from him now, and that I'm going to have to go over a third with him as well. Yeah, so that's just general thoughts. I know that I didn't dive into this book at all, but that's of course because of the video I did with Ira, which you should go watch right now if you want my full opinion on this lovely novel. All right, thank you so much for watching. If you watched it till the end, I appreciate it. If you liked it, click like. If you like this kind of content, please click subscribe, because we'll be making a lot more of it in the future. Thank you so much for watching.